So it was all about how do you break up 40 minutes so you're not just talking for 40 minutes, right? For either one of us. So that's kind of what it was. So we got all this stuff, right? Here's all this great stuff that we can think about, theories and knowledge about grief and bereavement. But there's always that question, what can I do? Here I am in the house, what can I actually do, right? How can I help them feel better? What can I say? What can I... So here's what we do. We assure care and concern. How do you do that? Introduce yourself like, hi, I'm Gunnar, I'm the chaplain, and I'm very sorry. Right? And then just let them kind of say, oh, thank you, or I'm glad you're here. But the first thing I do is just let that sink in. Hi, I'm Gunnar. Here's who I am. I'm a person with you in this time. And I'm sorry. Be present. I'm focused. I'm with them. I may hold their hand. I may not. You get a kind of get a sense for, is somebody a touchy person or not a touchy person, right? Don't say, I'm sorry for your loss, just I'm sorry. And sometimes I'll say, well, that was my husband. Tell me about Frank. Right? Just a couple minutes, and they'll tell you something that was really important for them. Oh, we've been together for 50 years. We met at the carnival, and he was afraid to ask me on a date, and he finally did. I know you don't have a lot of time, right? But 5 minutes, you'd be amazed what somebody will tell you, and it helps their grieving process. And they're going to say, boy, that person just, they helped me so much when my husband died. Right? Just because you were there, you introduced yourself, you focused on them for a couple minutes, and you asked them to tell you what was important about their loved one. Care and concern is listening, not talking. It's easy for us to get anxious and say, okay, well, let me tell you about this, let me tell you about that, here's what's going to happen next. But to kind of push the pause button and just listen for a couple of minutes. It's not always the easiest thing to do, especially if we're like doers. There's doers and there's beers, right? If we're doers, it's hard to say, okay, let me just listen to you for a few minutes. Listening and not talking. There is a time for doing some stuff. Is there someone that I can call for you? You're alone. Is there someone I can call? Is there something that I can do for you before I leave? Right? Reflective listening, ask questions. Why did this happen? So it's easy for us to say, well, the heart stopped and this was going on and that was going on, and we could start to go into medical stuff, right? That's not what they're asking. They're asking is, why do people die? I don't know. Down the road, they may want to know all the medical stuff and get the coroner's report or whatever. But right now, what they're really asking is a deep question of why did my loved one die? Not medically, but why do people have to die? Why do I have to go through this? Why do I have to experience this pain and loss and separation? Lots of questions underneath is what they're asking, okay? So I don't know. I'm sorry. This must be really hard. That kind of stuff. In an ideal circumstance, right? How can I help support you in this time? Not what can I do or what can I say. What would be helpful for you? How can I help support you in this time? How much would you like to know? Is there anything I can do? Is there any information I can provide that would be helpful? So we wanted to also give you a minute, right, and talk about real quick compassion, fatigue, and self-care. There was a song years ago, Jody Messina, my Give a Damn is Busted. And compassion fatigue is, you know what, I've gone to all these runs, I've gone through all these deaths, and, I'm just kind of numb. I just really don't care that much anymore. It's kind of hard for me to get my caring up. So compassion fatigue, also known as empathy fatigue, describes unique stresses and circumstances for caregivers, people in caregiving professions like us. The stress of the workplace negatively affects cynicism. You get cynical. You feel like you're not as effective as you used to be. It's not to say that you aren't, but you feel like you're not as effective. You're not at the top of your game anymore, is what you feel like. So some find themselves questioning the meaning of life as it grows and gets a little more extreme, right? What's the purpose of life? What's my grounding in the world? Right? You can become a little more irritable, a little harder to concentrate. Maybe you don't sleep as much anymore. Studies have shown that up to 50% of helpers are vulnerable to experiencing compassion fatigue. 50% of helpers. That means half of the people, half of us in this room right now are vulnerable for compassion fatigue. Of those experienced, the strongest negative feelings have been the caregiver should have coped better. I feel overwhelmed. I feel sad. I feel exhausted. It's a matter of knowing how much of the stuff can we take before we got to let it out, right? How much can we just keep going and keep going and keep going and take on our shoulders before we let it go? And in order to get this, we need to strive for balance in the workplace. We need to strive for balance outside of the workplace in our lives, to be mindful of our physical, social, emotional, and spiritual well-being. How do we keep ourselves in balance, right? In other words, what we need to have is an awareness of what we see and hear and what we feel, both. And to monitor if one of those is getting out of whack. Okay? So, one of the ways that we can help relieve some of the possibility for compassion fatigue is what we call Sabbath. And I know that sounds like a religious term, right? That's why I put that title up there. It's not just for religion anymore. Sabbath is a break from whatever's going on, okay? It could be a time, it could be a place, it could be an event. So a time could be short, long, and in between. Could be a quick meditation before you start your shift. Something that you have, that you develop, that is meaningful for you, that you can just get yourself into the zone before you start, right? Could be, maybe you get a break or a lunch, you do something then. Maybe you talk with Kevin or whoever your chaplain is.
No way.
No way. Hell no, right? No. Maybe there's some sense of refreshment on the go. That you can dump in real quick, right? The risk for fatigue increases if there's no separation. You go from one run to the next, right? That you can't control that, but what you do in between, you can control personally. Get a quick drink of water, juice, something like that. Wash your hands. There's almost a sense of like you're washing off whatever happened before you go on to the next thing. Stretch. Have some sort of a prayer or mantra that you can just silently repeat to yourself in between those two things, right? You're in the squad, you're going from one run to the next. You can just take a second and say, okay, this is going to be good. This is going to be good. Something, whatever you develop for yourself. The point is not what it is. The point is that you have something that you can do that lets you let go of what you just went through and frees you up to be ready for the next thing you're going to. Does that make sense? So it gives you a chance to let it go. Let go of the weight. Maybe there's a Sabbath space, someplace like the Violet, they have a weight room, right? I don't know about everybody else. But maybe there's a retreat area, someplace you can go in the station. Personalize your workspace. If you look around my desk, right, I've got my kids, I've got pictures of, I'm a huge hockey fan, so I've got hockey pictures. I've got a picture of Myrtle Beach. I didn't buy that picture. It's one that I took when I was on vacation. So every time I look at that vacation, I remember where I was standing, the smell of the ocean, the breeze coming off of the ocean in my face, right? It's my picture. I remember that. So it's a quick moment. I can look at that, and I'm really not in my office. So is there some way you can personalize your workspace so just a quick glance gives you a quick break from everything that's going on, right? Sabbath event. This is what we often think of, right? Sabbath, you go to church on the Sabbath, or worship with a community of faith, but it could also be something you do at the end of the day, the work day, the end of your shift, or the end of the work week. Maybe there's a God, thank you that this week is over prayer. And that helps you just mentally let it go and put it in the past, right? Leave it behind. Maybe your first thing I do when I go home every day, right, is change my clothes. Completely change my clothes. Put on something completely different. Now, of course, that's my jeans and like a Hard Rock Cafe t-shirt and stuff, but I mean, I could, right, just take off my tie and sit down and eat my dinner, but before I eat dinner, I go up and change my clothes. So I've taken off the work day and put on my home life, visibly, physically, right? Could work out, you could watch a movie, you could play. Again, it's not what you choose, it's the fact that you're being intentional about doing something that's different, that gives you a chance to let go of stuff. And then some possible meditations. These are, if you like these, use them or develop your own, something that you can carry with you, again, for those moments or end of week or whatever. Just give me a sense that what I'm doing is good work. Inspire me and empower me for it. Okay? And then there's a list of suggested reading for you in your handout as well.